So for those who've been here before and those who haven't, we're actually adding two awards today to the Champions Club on the end. So we'll take care of the 4 individual Hall of Famers. We'll make a switch and bring up the appropriate folks to speak for the 2 Champions Club team. Champions Club is a new group that's developed through athletics and the development office that honors Midwest Conference regular season champions and those that have advanced in NCAA tournament play, or those that have won trophies at the NCAA meet. So we'll have 2 different little programs this morning, but we'll blend them right together. So welcome alumni, family, and friends to our beautiful campus. I hope you enjoy your time with us this weekend. I'd like to recognize the Pratt and Axline families for their generous contributions that made the permanent home of the Hall of Fame upstairs such a great location to recognize the best fighting Scott athletes. So thanks to the Pratt and Axline. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to recognize any M Club Hall of Fame members who have been inducted previously that are in attendance today to stand and be recognized. Hall of Famers. Okay, so the record is 3. We've got to have at least 4 next year. We've got to do better than that. Over the past year, the Monmouth College Athletic Hall of Fame and Monmouth College have lost 2 valued members. First, with the passing of Jerry McBride, class of 1958. Jerry earned 9 varsity letters in baseball, football, and basketball at Monmouth. He was one of the famous 3 Macs who excelled in sports at Monmouth High School and at Monmouth College. Jerry was inducted into the M Club Hall of Fame in 1989. The college also mourns the passing of Dave Yez. Dave worked in the Monmouth School District for 30 years. In retirement, he helped supervise student teachers at Monmouth College, helped Dr. Glasgow and myself serving as a swim coach at the college. So ask for a moment of silence for those 2 gentlemen. Thank you. I'd like to thank the members of our Student Athlete Advisory Committee and mostly our baseball team for handing out programs this morning. The mission of the National Student Athlete Advisory Committee is to enhance the total student athlete experience by promoting opportunity, protecting student athlete welfare, and fostering a positive student athlete image. So thanks, everybody. Activities on campus today. Homecoming parade will go down East Broadway between 6th and 9th. It will begin at 11:30. It will include our M Club Hall of Famers, the Monmouth College Pipe Band, Fighting Scots Marching Band, and others included in the parade will be the Homecoming Court, Alumni Award recipients, as well as the 40, 35, 30, 10, and 5-year class reunions. I haven't asked for this before. They're pretty old now because the 85, 86 championship guys are 40 years old. I'm thinking if you guys really want to go, you can squeeze in there and walk in the parade. They don't probably have enough vehicles for you, but Eric, you're always up for being front and center. Get your butt out there. The homecoming football game against Cornell College will kick off at a 2 p.m. start time at Zorn Stadium. The volleyball team begins an important conference match at 1 p.m. in here today. They won last night against Lake Forest. We ask that our 4 Hall of Fame inductees and members of the Champions Club also be at the 50-yard line at 1:45 before coin toss to be recognized to the crowd. So I'll be there to meet you at 1:45. So now it's my pleasure to introduce our next speaker this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome a great fan of Fighting Scots Athletics, Dr. Patricia Graves, 15th President of Monmouth College.
Well, welcome. First of all, thank you to Roger for years and decades of service as a coach and a lover of Monmouth. So let's just give a shout out to Roger. And it is homecoming weekend, which is an exciting time for alumni to come back and recognize, but it's also an exciting week for our students. So I'd like to just give a shout out to our students and our student athletes. If you're a student, current student or a student athlete, please stand. Baseball team, you're already there? Okay, let's give them a hand. And it is 8:30 on a homecoming weekend, so that's even better. Let's get real, right? So I am very excited to see the turnout for today with so many friends and fans and alumni here to celebrate our 41st M Club Hall of Fame and our inaugural Champions Club induction. Roger kind of put this, there is something special about athletics at Monmouth College, right? I've been working with collegiate athletics now for 20 plus years, and there's something special here. Whether you're a student athlete, whether you're a fan, whether you're a supporter of student athlete working in our sports information department, whether you've coached or cheered, there's something special here. You know, the campus has heard me say this many, many times. Athletics is such an important part of the education here, no matter what role you're playing. When you think about the skills that student athletes learn and how they impact your life and your career success, it's pretty amazing, right? How to work with others, how to work through adversity, how to communicate, right, under stressful situations. Those are all skills that you can move into the workplace, into your families as well. And so, you know, the coaches here are very much educators along with the faculty to help students really build an exciting life, right? And then, you know, there's things you learn on 6-hour bus rides to Lawrence or Redmond. Right? There's things that you learn with hard practices and that coach telling you again, right, one more time. But they really shape the students here for success. And if you're not a student athlete and you're a supporter, you also learn how to do that and support others, cheer on your school, have school spirit, and they last far beyond college. And the connection obviously does, and I hope our students see the many people that are back, the long-standing commitment and love of this place. So today, I'm just honored to be part of this celebration to honor our teams and individuals who didn't just win some games, they inspired us, and they continue to inspire us, and they've helped Monmouth stay true to proud fighting Scots spirits. So we're so grateful that you built this legacy. And so let's celebrate the stories and let's make sure we do a group roll Scots. So I'm gonna say 1, 2, 3, and I wanna hear roll Scots. 1, 2, 3. Roll Scots!
Thank you, President Graves. Today's a special day for Monmouth Athletics, as not only will we induct 4 new members to the Athletic Hall of Fame, as I previously mentioned, we'll induct our second and third teams into the Champions Club. If you've not been here before, the Hall of Fame is right at the top of the stairs. The Champions Club board is out in the lobby, and the plaques for today's individual inductees are both permanently in the M Club room and on display out in the lobby area for those to see. Today we induct a softball catcher that excelled as a hitter and base stealer during her career. We recognize the first women's cross-country All-American, a national champion men's high jumper in track and field, and a baseball pitcher with a career school record ERA of 2.14. Pretty good day. So introducing our first inductee today is former Monmouth College softball coach, John Goddard.
This place had lots of memories for me. It is my privilege to formally induct Warren Bergstresser-Patowski into the Monmouth College Athletics Hall of Fame. Warren's career with Monmouth softball was marked by excellence, consistency, and leadership. As a 4-year starter behind the plate, she became one of the most accomplished student athletes in program history. She was a 4-time All-Midwest Conference selection and earned South Division Player of the Year honors twice during her career. Lauren still holds several programs, including career hits, 174, and if you divide it by 4, that'll tell you how many approximately she got per year. At-bats, 488, and runs scored, 122. She led the Scots in bats and runs scored in each of her 4 seasons, and finished her career with an impressive 356 batting average. Despite playing as a catcher, one of the most physically demanding positions on the field, Lauren was also a major threat on the base path. And if you see Lauren, you're never going to think she was a catcher by the way. We all have a stereotypical image of what we think a catcher should be. She holds a Monmouth record for single season base stealing with 24 steals and a career stolen bases of 63. She twice stole 4 bases in a game. First time as a freshman and last time as a senior. Age did not slow her down. I'm going to give you a personal thing about how she stole bases. We were at Lake Forest, and she had the green light. She could run whenever she wanted. All I requested was she didn't get thrown out. So he's on first base, batter's up, pitcher pitches it, she takes off, and I look up and I see arms, legs, ankles, knees, everything flying in the air. She wasn't sliding. She was going into second base standing up. And if you know anything about physics, you're not an electric car. Going as fast as you can and then stopping suddenly is not a thing that happens without usually injury. So I'm sitting there thinking, oh man, here goes my base stealing threat. I hit her, gonna hurt herself. So I called timeout, went out there at second base. I said, Lauren, if I ever see you going to second base standing up again, I'm gonna bench you. Turned around and walked off. Went back to my coaching box, standing there, next batter's up. Pitcher pitches. And the next thing I hear is swish, pants sliding across the ground. And I looked down and there she'd stolen third. And Lauren, being Lauren, she stood up and said, hi, coach. How could you be mad? Lauren's impact extended beyond the individual statistics. She helped lead Monmouth to 4 consecutive Midwest Conference playoff appearances and was a key part of the 2011 squad that captured a first-place finish in the South in my first 20-plus game season. That season, she led the team with a 403 batting average. During her career, the team won 71 games, which was about a little more than a fourth of my total, so that's not bad. Lauren's achievements on the field speak for themselves, but it was her work ethic, consistency, and leadership that made her one of the cornerstones of Monmouth softball during her 4 years. She never missed an early morning strength or conditioning session. She was the only person. She's a little bit, I'm going to use the word freaky when it comes to athleticism. We were up there doing our strength and conditioning, and girls came over and said, Coach, you need to come and see what Lauren's doing. So I went over there, right by the rock wall. She's standing on a meadow ball, not holding anything. One of those big round things, she's just standing. Only on TV have I ever seen anybody standing on a meadow ball or rolling it around. She didn't roll it around, she was standing. So, great balance. I got a couple personal stories here besides the 2 I just told. Example of her speed. If you know anything about the softball field, we have our dugouts are set back away from the home plate right away, and the fence connects with each corner of the dugout. Well, I can't remember who we were playing, but somebody hit a little pop flare, a real short one, it's hit it right for the corner of the dugout, and it's a long way to get up from your catching thing and get over there and catch that ball. She had the instincts, that ball came up, it's headed towards our dugout. She turned, ran, was running over there after it. She caught it, crashed into the fence. And here in Lauren's way, she said, Coach, you ran me into the fence. Because I was telling her, you got it, you got it, you got it. She got it, the fans went crazy, but I ran her into the fence. And that was left. Within 3 or 4 games later, she did the exact same thing going to the right. Now, I doubt if their coach said anything. But that's an example of her speed. I'll give you an example of her general attitude, probably of what I'm going to think is like about life and how hard things can be in life. I used to go and watch the girls. I had nothing else to do, so I recruited and went and watched girls play softball for 13 years. And I'm over there and she's playing on the college women's team. I go ahead and their coach comes over and says, Coach, she's not catching today, she's gonna play third base. Third base, has she ever played third base before? He says, well, I don't know whether she has or not, but what she told me was, how hard can it be? And so I watched no errors, nothing, good throws to first, blah, blah, blah. And she kind of, between games, she comes up and says, Coach, I'm playing first base today, or for the second. I said, you ever played first base before? And she goes, well, no. But how hard can it be? So I think that was her general attitude through college. Probably right now, it's nothing is too hard. It's always how hard can it be? Took it by the horns and took it over. But anyway, it is with great pride and appreciation that we welcome Lauren Bergstresser-Bukowski into the Monmouth College Athletics Hall of Fame.
I am incredibly humbled to stand here today to accept this award. Many people have influenced me throughout my softball career, but none more than my parents and family. It is because of their encouragement, dedication, and unwavering support that I stand here today. Interestingly, it wasn't until my playing days were over that I truly understood what softball had given me. It offered so much more than training, competition, wins, and losses. It taught me how to perform under pressure. It built both confidence and humility. It showed me the importance of leadership and teamwork. And most of all, it proved that hard work really does pay off. I've come to realize that the game was never just about winning or losing. It was about building character, perseverance, and a sense of purpose that extends far beyond the field. I am so grateful for my experience here at Monmouth College and deeply honored to accept this award.
What's happened since Coach Goddard moved to Florida, but apparently he's been studying. He's talking about physics. And today I have the distinct pleasure to introduce our second inductee, Mary Kate Byer-Black, class of 2012. The good thing about Mary Kate is class of 2012 was really the only thing that was ever in question during her career here. The rest of it was going to happen. Sometimes we wondered about that. Not really. If you know Mary Kate already, probably love her. If you don't know her, I don't have nearly enough time before the homecoming weekend is over to explain her to you, so good luck when you get to talk to her today. MK came to Monmouth College after an outstanding career at East Peoria High School. She eventually chose to attend Monmouth over other larger schools that were very interested in her joining their program. She not only became a part of the program at Monmouth, she led the charge for the distance program women, showing other Scots the way to develop into the first women's Midwest Conference championship team while earning conference, regional, and national recognition. If you know Mary Kate, her personality lights up a room, but the numbers from her Monmouth career take her accomplishments even further. In cross country, she has 8 of the top 10 6,000 meter times run on any course all time. She owns a top time for a freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior in Monmouth cross country history. She led the cross-country team to the low Midwest Conference score ever of 51 points to win the first Midwest Conference women's cross-country title in 2008. Mary Kate was hard-headed, and she preferred to race from the front, where she could see the leaders all the time, usually being right with them. Her first 2 NCAA championships didn't go quite as well. She used the same strategy. She placed 74th and 58th. That taught her to eventually run a progressive approach to a championship race, and at the NCAA meet her senior year, Mary Kate followed the race plan perfectly, Going out a bit further back, using her strength to move past runners in the middle of the race, the strong finish in the last mile resulted in a 20th place finish and All-American honors. She played a leadership role for Rachel Bowden, who qualified for the NCAA meet in 2011, Kyra Kimber, who eventually earned All-American honors in 2014, and she was joined early in her career by Katie Staub. Katie, Mary Kate, Rachel, and Kyra are the only 4 women that are all 4-time All-Midwest Conference runners, so it's not unusual that they were all together at the same time. She knows it, but I have to be honest, it hurt me a little bit. Mary Kate didn't love track and field like she loved cross country. She tolerated it. She showed great loyalty to her teammates and always gave her best. She won outdoor titles at 5,000 meters, 3,000 meters, and 3 times in the 3,000 steeplechase. Indoors, she was the 2011 Midwest Conference Outstanding Meet Performer, winning the 3,000, 5,000, and distance medley relay. She helped the distance portion of our program to 8 Midwest Conference team titles and 1 in cross country, totaling the school best 9 Midwest Conference championships. I was always convinced that the meet was going to be much closer than I thought it was. I strong-armed her a bit, got her to run 5,000, 10,000 steeplechase her sophomore year at Carroll University. She ran the 10,000 meters, which she could have been great at one time. She walked off the track in 2nd place and said, "I will never do that again." What set Mary Kate apart as a runner was her willingness to train hard and find the race in the workout, mental toughness, and a willingness to suffer the pain of pushing hard in a big race. While her racing was fun to watch, it was much more satisfying. It's much more satisfying now to watch her roles as a sister, a daughter, wife, and mother. She excels at each of those. So I'm pleased to introduce now for induction into the M Pub Hall of Fame, my good friend, Mary Kate Meyer.
Good morning, Fighting Scots. I am incredibly honored to be standing here today. Coach. Being inducted to the Hall of Fame is the ultimate honor for the hard work I put into my career. I want to start by thanking God. Without Him, none of this would have been possible. He gave me the strength to keep going, and He placed the right people at the right time in my life to achieve my goals. To my dad, mom, and brother, I want to take a moment to express my deepest gratitude for their steady support and dedication through my running career. Being inducted to the Hall of Fame is a humbling achievement, and I know that none of it would have been possible without their encouragement, sacrifices, and belief in me. From the countless hours spent driving to my meets, to the many times they put their own needs aside to ensure that I had the things that I needed to succeed. They have been my biggest fans and my foundation. This honor is as much theirs as it is mine. I am truly thankful for their love and involvement in every step of my career. I just wish my dad would have been here to see this. Okay. To my junior high and high school coaches, thank you for teaching me that grit and hard work and humor are what makes running enjoyable, and winning doesn't hurt it either. Coach Woodard, thank you for always treating me like one of your daughters. I always wanted to impress you with my hard work and always felt a sense of accomplishment when I got a good slap on the back and tears in your eyes after finishing a race. For as tough as he lets on, he's a bit of a softie. I have 2 words for you. Peel banana. I want to quickly say thank you to the staff and athletic department. Every athlete needs a Coach Sags, a Bob Foster, a Bob, a Kathy, a Mitch Russell, a Coach Sanders, and a Dan Nolan. I didn't always carry myself with a lot of maturity, but boy, did we have fun. To my teammates, thank you for being my second family. We shared miles, sweat, pre-race nerves, and more inside jokes than I can count. You made the hard days bearable and the great days unforgettable. We've endured some of the most awful conditions together. Some of those were self-induced. From freezing Monsanto runs, blistering August Sunday mornings on sandy trails, 8-minute abs, or repeats at Peacock, we've done it together and we came out stronger and faster. I am lucky enough to have had a relationship with my teammates because some of my favorite memories have nothing to do with racing and more about the friendships. Like the one night we played Capture the Flag in Bowers. If I could go back in time, it would be to play one round of catchphrase in the hotel rooms before me. And it's no brainer, the girls would have won. The amount of love we shared for one another helps foster our success. We shared many hugs, pre-meet say-do pep talks, and so many PR huddles. We're the lucky ones for that. So thank you again, cross-country and track teammates, for all the memories. And now, Coach Haynes, thank you for enduring my wild antics on and off the courses and track. We have had some great times, and it was always a victory when we could make you smile or laugh at the stupid stuff us girls would say or do. You became one of my favorite people in the whole world, and the respect I have for you is unwavering. You were like a second father to me, holding me accountable through a season of growth and encouraging me to be my very best. There isn't any one conversation that sticks out in my head, but a culmination of all of them that made me grin and bear any interval training, tempo run, or those long runs at Oquawka. You created an environment where no one wanted to complain about the work. We just knew we needed to get it done. You showed us that the reward at the end of the season was well worth every agonizing mile. I could have gone to so many different schools, but I knew that being a Fighting Scot was the right decision. I knew that running for Coach Haynes was the right choice. Thank you for the time you spent creating individualized running plans and practicing with each area of track. We were so lucky to have you. I love you, Coach. I'm proud of being named an All-American and a conference champ. This sport has helped me become the person that I am today. Cross country and track taught me discipline, resilience, and how to power through when everything in me wanted to quit. Lessons that have carried over to becoming a wife and a mother that I am today. To my husband, Corey, and children, Lachlan and Isla, there is no better way to accept this award than by having you here with me. I love you so much. My success doesn't really mean much now to you kids, but I hope they can look at my collegiate career one day and think, wow, Mom was awesome. To the current and future runners out there, enjoy every mile, every bus ride, every blister, ice bath, whistle blown, gun going off, bell ringing, indicating one more lap. They say the days are long, but the years are short. And I think that's relevant for any season of your life. Because before you know it, your collegiate career is finished. You're graduated and married with children. Thank you again for this incredible honor. I am truly grateful for every coach, professor, staff member, janitor, and cafeteria worker that was part of my life in my journey through Monmouth College.
Tyler Hannum found his way into Monmouth College track and field through the side door. He believed he was a wide receiver. Then he talked to me, maybe a kicker, I don't remember which it was. He talked to me down here in the corner and told me he was an 800-meter runner. I watched him run one workout and I knew that wasn't true. Fortunately, we steered him towards a high jump event where he found his place to shine. This is not in my notes, but I've thought about it all week long and I know I've got to say it. Tyler was here about 30 years into my career, so I thought I knew a lot about track and field. He was never a problem in track and field, but I had a damn kid in a kinesiology biomechanics class. He would argue with me about every single thing that I said every day in class and try to prove me wrong, yet I was the one with the advanced degree at the time. So thanks for not being that way in the high jump, Tyler. I killed you. Tyler and his teammates earned a perfect 8 for 8 on Midwest Conference team titles during his career. He helped lead the most successful group all time with Monmouth College high jumpers. Division I teams would be happy with these numbers. Tyler went 6 feet 11 and a half. His teammate Nick Byam went 6 feet 11. Sean Wells went 6'6" and 3/4, and Matt Hassler went 6 feet 6 inches. That's 4 deep at the Midwest Conference of really good high jumpers. All you really need to know about Tyler are his Midwest Conference outdoor progressions as a high jumper. In 2008, as a freshman, he went 6'1" and a quarter, and I believe he went 6 feet 0. Went 6'1" and a quarter and placed 4th at the Midwest Conference meet, and the Midwest Conference champion was also a freshman from a school in Jacksonville that we won't say the name of. In 2009, as a sophomore, Tyler jumped 6'6" and 3/4, winning the conference championship title, beating that guy from Jacksonville. 2010, he went 6 feet 9 and a half in the rainstorm in Jacksonville, oddly enough, to win another title. And as a senior on his home track, again in the rain, he went 6 feet 11 inches, earning his 3rd straight Midwest Conference outdoor title. So if you keep him track, he defeated the Midwest Conference champion from his freshman year 3 consecutive years, and also at the national meet. Tyler was honored by the Midwest Conference coaches as the 2010 and 2011 most outstanding field event performer at the Midwest Conference outdoor meet. Tyler earned 3 NCAA All-American awards, highlighted by his tremendous performance at the 2010 NCAA Outdoor Championships at Baldwin Wallace College in Ohio. Appropriately, Eric Ely, first national champion at Monmouth College as a high jumper, was in attendance, so it was an interesting day. Very hot, no wind. The officials put the bar at the wrong height, and it took a while for Tyler and I to figure that out. As I normally did in my best coaching mode, I cursed a little bit. He ran and hid in the shade, and everything was good until he jumped again. Eric brought a little bit of championship aura to the event. Tyler's excellent focus pushed him to a 6 feet 11 and a half Midwest Conference outdoor record jump on his 2nd attempt to defeat the previous national champion. So it was a great day. Tyler was an excellent teammate, hard worker, student of the event. As an old high jumper myself, it was a pleasure to coach Tyler, but now it's my great pleasure to induct Tyler Hannum as a member of the Monmouth College M Club Athletic Hall of Fame.
Good morning, everyone. Coach, I'm still not convinced that barometric pressure is what keeps water down. It's an incredible honor to stand before you this morning as an inductee into the Monmouth College Athletic Hall of Fame. I want to sincerely thank the committee for this recognition and everyone who's been a part of the journey. When I came to Monmouth, I didn't plan on competing in track. I joined mostly because it's a social sport. I thought it'd be a fun way to stay active and make friends. I hadn't accomplished much in high school in high jump, so my expectations were pretty low, as Coach mentioned. I definitely wasn't thinking about championships or Hall of Fame positions. I very distinctly remember sitting in the banquet freshman year, preseason banquet, where Johnny Higgins had previously, the year before, made All-American, I think it was, in 07.
7 and 8.
Yep. So, and he was talking about how hard work and determination can help anybody achieve those goals or those awards. He also noted how he started in the same position I was, but I sat there thinking, yeah, right. Not everybody has the physical capability to achieve those performances on the national stage. But what I didn't understand then is that effort really does unlock something, not just results. That moment planted a seed, even if I didn't realize it at the time. One of the biggest influences on my growth, both as an athlete and as a person, was Coach Haynes. His deep knowledge of the high jump and track and field as a whole opened my eyes to how technical and detailed the event truly is. What started out as just jumping over the bar became a complex, fascinating craft. I grew to love the technique, the mechanics, and the tiny adjustments that made all the difference. Coach Haynes didn't just teach me how to become a better jumper. He taught me how to think. That experience shaped how I approach everything in my life, whether it be a job, a hobby, personal goal. I've learned to dive deeper, to explore the details, and to appreciate the process. That mindset, more than any medal, is one of the most valuable things I've done. Personal story, I gotta go off script here, that involved Coach and Whitney Didier. This is to illustrate the kind of person that Coach Haynes was. While he's very intelligent, very hopeful, and very supportive the entire time. I remember doing some plyometrics on the field, bounding, lunges, what have you. Whitney and Coach were just off to the side, chit-chatting. She wants to finish her workout early, probably solving a hunger or favorite clover picking techniques. When suddenly, Coach catches my attention. Tyler, shaking his head. What are you doing? Tall A skips. Do you not know how to do tall A skips? No, thank you. I'm a senior. What? Why? How have I gone 4 years without being discovered that I don't know how to skip? Very basic, very, do it every day. Whitney chimes in. It's like this, Tyler. Rips off a couple tall A skips. That looks the same. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I don't understand. And they can't describe it to me. And I don't know what I did wrong. To this day, I suppose I don't know if I know how to skip. So Whitney, if you could help my daughter after this. So he's very likely to help you, but he's just as easily ready to mess with you. Coach Woodard, thank you for your energy, your leadership and support throughout my career. You're a great leader, and you've inspired those around you. Your energy has always been palpable. And as Mary Kate said, having you at the meets cheering us on, it was a lot of fun. To my teammates, I'm grateful to have trained and competed alongside you. You made the work more fun and the memories last longer. And to Monmouth College, thank you for giving me the opportunity to grow, to compete, and to be a part of something bigger than myself. High jump is a humbling event. It's just you, the runway, and the bar. And no matter how high you clear, the bar always goes up. But that's what makes it beautiful. It's not about beating the bar. It's about seeing how far you're willing to go to rise above it. So as I stand before you here today, incredibly grateful and humbled, I'll leave you with this. In whatever you do, athletics, careers, relationships, passions, I hope you keep striving, keep learning, and above all, keep rising the bar.
So inducting our final individual inductee today, is one of his former teammates in baseball, Josh Rager, class of 2006. I don't think there was ever a doubt Josh was going to be class of 2006.
Thank you, Coach Haynes. As Coach said, I'm Josh Rager. I was Dan's catcher during his time here at Monmouth. I say that because it was an absolute privilege to be his battery mate for two wonderful and memorable seasons in 05 and 06. He was a damn good pitcher, but now he's an even better friend, brother, son, husband, and father. We've stayed in contact a lot these last few years, always exchanging messages and pictures of where our kids' adventures now take us. That's very evident that Drew and Kinley are chips off the old block. I met Dan on a very hot move-in day in August of 04 at the beginning of our junior year when we were both moving into Bowers Hall. I was moving stuff in with roommates of mine, Steve Myros, Thad King, and Chad Goat, all future teammates of Dan's. For those that aren't aware, Bowers has a nice double-wide sidewalk in front that allows you to pull your vehicle in for easy unloading. As we're doing so, a little white Chevy S10 pulls in, starts unloading, and out climbs this big guy in a WIU shirt. Being the social guy that I am, and already knowing most of everybody on campus, he was an unfamiliar face to me. So I asked who he was, what brought him to Monmouth. He simply stated, "I'm Dan, and I'm here to play baseball." The surprise on my face hopefully wasn't too evident. He didn't look like much of a baseball player, but then again, most pitchers don't. I'm extremely glad, though, to say that he proved me wrong. The memories that he created for our program during his 2 seasons are unforgettable, and many I recall vividly to this day. One of my favorite photos from our time playing here came during that 05 season. It's of me ripping off my mask and sprinting back to the dugout after catching a third strike in the 05 conference tournament in Wisconsin, when Dan threw a perfect 3-2 changeup that hit the outside corner to get us out of a huge jam. Dan has an uncanny knack for being a bulldog when we needed it the most. His stuff could be described as nothing short of dominant. He had an electric fastball that he could locate with ease, a powerful 12-6 curveball that would literally disappear before it entered the zone, and he could pull the string on his changeup at any time. Dan's statistics speak for themselves, but I want to highlight just a couple. He was a model of consistency over his 2 seasons, making 23 starts in the Crimson and White, crafted 6 shutouts through 29 consecutive scoreless innings during the 05 campaign, and even threw a no-hitter our senior year in 06 against a very good Grinnell team that we would later have to eliminate in extra innings to advance to the conference championship. Every time Dan took the mound, I knew we had a great chance to win. Honestly, I wasn't sure where Dan was going to slot in to our pitching staff that 05 season. Since we had the reigning South Division Pitcher of the Year coming back, as well as numerous other returning weapons on the mound. But it was evident from the start of fall ball, he was going to compete to be at the front end of our rotation. He was a quiet leader. He went about his business preparing and just did his job. But even more than the guy he was on the mound, he's an even better person off of it. He's soft-spoken, always has a smile on his face. And I can't recall a time that he ever met me in the dugout, on the field, or somewhere on campus that I wasn't greeted with his trademark smile and "Hey, Rags." That 2005 season was a memorable one, where Dan teamed up with Ryan Schutzbach to form one of the best 1-2 punches that Monmouth baseball has seen. With those two leading the charge on the mound, we went 11-1 in the South and secured the #1 seed headed into the conference tournament. We were positioned for a strong postseason run that many of us were hoping would rival that 2002 squad that won the tournament and got to host the regional right here at Monmouth. Unfortunately for us, the baseball gods had different plans, as the tournament was reduced to a single elimination because of lovely Wisconsin weather. We lost a tight, hard-fought game to Ripon, where Dan pitched his tail off and deserved a much better fate. That didn't deter what we had accomplished, and honestly gave many of us some added fuel heading into our senior season in '06. We lost some integral pieces from that '05 team, and Alan Materney, Steve Turner, Tristan Reimolds, and Thad King. In a program like ours, though, and with Coach Sanders' mentality of next man up, we simply reloaded. So in typical Dan fashion, he went to work and picked up right where he left off in 2005. With some young guys who played key roles for us in '05, now a year older, and adding a couple transfers, we set expectations for that '06 senior season very high. Unfortunately, half of our two-headed mound monster from the previous year moved on, and due to some additional injuries to key guys on the mound, Dan certainly shouldered a heavy load in '06. All of that led to him being named the South Division Pitcher of the Year for his efforts. My idol growing up was Cubs second baseman Ryan Sandberg. Unfortunately, we lost him earlier this year in July. But after that, they started playing a lot of his highlights, one of which was his Major League Baseball Hall of Fame speech. And it really hit home, and I think it's very fitting in describing Dan's career here at Monmouth. Rhino stated that people told him he was in the Hall because of the way he played the game, with respect. Respect for the game, respect for the uniform, respect for his teammates. And Dan did that every time he pulled on that red number 18 Scots jersey. I can't think of a better representation of what it meant to be a Fighting Scot. I just wish I could have played 4 years with him instead of just the 2. He played the game the right way and carried himself in such a way that commanded respect. It's my privilege and honor to introduce to you my teammate, my battery mate, my friend, and now a 2025 Monmouth College M Club Hall of Fame inductee, Dan Dunn.
Thank you, Josh, for that great introduction. And thank you to Monmouth College Athletic Department for this incredible award. I am very honored to be here today. When I received the call that I was selected to be in the Monmouth College M Club Hall of Fame, I was very surprised to say the least. I've always dreamed of being selected, but never thought it would truly happen. Coach Roger Sander and all my teammates played a huge part in my baseball success. They always had my back, and there was no way I would have accomplished what I did without their help. Playing for Coach Sander and alongside my teammates were some of the best years of my life. My family has always been my biggest fans throughout my athletic career. My grandparents and my mother very rarely missed a game. After each game I pitched in, my grandfather was always there to go over each play, the good and the bad. I've always looked up to my older brother Jeff as I saw his success as a pitcher at the collegiate level, and I wanted to do exactly what he did. He was an inspiration and a great role. Thank you to my wife Jenna and children Drew and Kinley for celebrating this remarkable accomplishment with me today. I am very honored and excited to be a member of the M Club Hall of Fame. Thank you.
I think so. Like Fort Mountain.
So, I'd like to bring up Brian Ross and Nathan Maliva for the second part of our program. This is as I said, the Monmouth College Champions Club, recognizing conference championship teams and those who advanced in NCAA play. Right behind me, I guess, Brian, thanks. Anybody that's been involved with a championship team knows that magical things happen. Players who probably weren't quite as good find their absolute best and surprise the coaches and maybe even their teammates and themselves. I know I have an old friend in coaching who told me one time that you have to make the average ones good and the good ones great. We've been pretty good at doing that for a lot of years at Monmouth. It's great for fans and family to be here today, but the most important people are the student athletes that are here today. Guys, I hope you got something from the 4 Hall of Fame inductees, but I hope you listened to about what happened with these 3 teams today. So with that, we'll introduce Nathan Believa, Sports Information Director at Monmouth College, to introduce the 1925 men's football team.
First of all, congrats to all of our M Club inductees today. It's been great learning about your success here at Monmouth and reading about that history. Also, big thanks to some of my staff. A couple of them are back there who did some research on this 1925 team, along with Barry McNamara and Jeff Rankin, since obviously it's a lot harder to find information about a team from 100 years ago. I think, Dan Nolan, that was your first year, second year, 1925, maybe? But different era, the games weren't streamed. Weren't written about, so we did a lot of research and found out everything we could. So our first Champions Club team to be inducted, the 1925 football team, coached by M Club Hall of Famer Herbert Hart. They celebrated their centennial this fall, and the 1925 team won Monmouth's first conference title after World War I. They also posted the second season in school history without a loss. Fighting Scots played in 2 conferences that year, the Little 19 and the MCAC. They had a school record 7 shutouts from the defense, including 5 in a row to end the season. They allowed just 13 points on the season, and I know that makes Chad Braun, our current head coach, defensive coordinator, very proud that the team had 5 straight shutouts to end the year. The offense was nicknamed the Trick-A-Minute Machine. They were captained by offensive leader Warren Taylor. They scored 90 points on the season. They started the year with a win over Harding, then they beat Coe and Carthage. They had a 7-7 draw against Augustana, and then did not allow a point the rest of the season. They had shutout wins over Eureka, Illinois College, and Lake Forest. Then they had a 0-0 draw against Cornell that ended up being the game that decided the conference championship. Both of those teams ended up without a loss, so with that 0-0 draw, Monmouth and Cornell shared the MCAC title, because on the last week of the season, Cornell won their game, and Monmouth knocked off Knox 12-0 on Thanksgiving Day in the Turkey. Taylor, Fat Lewis, Lev Wallace, Judson Jones, and Pop Gorham were all named All-State. Wallace was also named to the All-Midwest Region team. They put 6 players eventually into the M Club Hall of Fame, including future NFL player Heath Wolford. Taylor came back to Monmouth as the football coach in 1930 and 31, and in fact his 31 team, which will be inducted into the Champions Club eventually, also went undefeated and won Monmouth's next conference title after the one in which he was a player. They joined the 1925 team as teams to go unbeaten and win the conference title right after World War I. Now the 1925 team joins the 72 team as unbeaten squads and Champions Club members. It's my honor to induct the 1925 Fighting Scots football team into our Champions Club.
Thanks, Nathan. I'm glad you chose Dan Nolan, not me, for the 1925 line. That's good. The next group, we'll have one of the teammates induct them. I thought long and hard about that. The 1985-86 teams were special to me. My career never would have taken off and had any momentum had it not been for this group of guys. I was 23 or 24 years old when I got to start coaching them, and they made the most of what tiny bit of knowledge I had. I really didn't think very long and hard about this. I knew Brian Ross was the right guy to induct us. He came through both years for these teams, but he really came through his 1986 season and set a conference 400-meter record that was needed up at Ripon College for us to have a chance to win the meet. But mostly, Brian, so you get your moment in the sun because you've deserved it standing in Eric and Roger Wells' shade all these years. I knew I couldn't have Roger and Eric get this talk because they both enjoy talking about themselves a great deal. And I promised President Graves we'd make this thing on time, so I knew Brian would get the details right. Am I catching up for all these years? Brian Ross, Monmouth College Director.
Good morning, everyone. As Coach said, I'm Brian Ross, class of '86, and today we're here to celebrate a remarkable achievement in Monmouth College athletics. The introduction of the 1985 and '86 outdoor men's and track and field teams to the Fighting Scots Championship Club. These were the years that set the stage for the Fighting Scots' long tradition of excellence. They deserve to be remembered not for only what they won, but what they started. Although my family couldn't be here today, I'm grateful to share this moment with my Monmouth track family. Shout out to them, and can I get the members of the 85 and 86 teams to please stand? Well, everybody but you, Eric. You just wave, you're tall enough. Come on. Thank you. So, let's go back to the spring of 1985. We are the world, hit #1 in May. Bullets were still a thing. And Coach Roger Haynes, as he mentioned, was just in his second year leading the program. The team was young, hungry, maybe a little underestimated within the conference. But at the Midwestern Conference Championship that year, hosted right here at Monmouth, my fellow Scots made a statement. We didn't just win, we dominated with 117 points to take the title. The first Midwestern Conference title for the men's team since 1961, and only the fourth since record started that I could find in 1920. The victories came across the board. Pete McNaughton blazed down the track at a conference record time to win the 110-meter hurdles in 14.82 seconds. He also soared in the long jump, leaping 22.10.5 inches. Roger Well captured the triple jump at 44.9 and set a new school record in the decathlon at 6,593 points. I believe both Pete's and Roger's school records still stand today. And then there was my good friend Eric, a leaper with boundless energy, team spirit, who set the conference record in the high jump by clearing 6 feet 9.5 inches. While those 5 victories scored 50 points, it was a true team effort with an additional 67 points scored, eclipsing the prior dominant players of Cornell and Coe colleges to win the Midwestern title. Eric, Roger, and Pete all qualified for nationals, with Eric finishing 5th, scoring 3 points, and becoming Monmouth College's first track and field All-American. In 1985, announced to the conference that Monmouth was ready to rise and be a serious player. So, let's fast forward to 1986. Repeating a championship is never easy. But the team had the grit and the talent to do it. At Ripon, even though we were down 2 of our 2 best athletes to injuries with both Roger and Pete sidelined, we were able to still score 100 points, edging out Coe by 7 to win back-to-back titles. This time it was a blend of familiar stars and a couple new faces. Some guy named Brian Ross won the 400. I was told he was pretty fast. I ran really loudly with his flat feet. Am I correct? They always heard me coming. Eric once again rolled the high jump, beating his prior jump by about a quarter inch, I believe. So once again, hit the conference record. And Dan Cox rolled the discus and also qualified for nationals at 48.24 meters. So, the Scots were not a one-hit wonder like Katrina and the Waves singing Walking on Sunshine, but they were they started the Midwestern Conference next. But before we talk about what the team accomplished since then, I got to stay in the 86. On the national stage, Eric's season reached the pinnacle when he won the NCAA Division III National Championship in the high jump, leaping 6 feet 10.75 inches. Think about it, a Monmouth athlete standing on top of the podium as the best in the country when the program was still carving out its identity. Eric became a 3-time All-American and etched his name permanently in Scots history. Nearly 40 years later, it's clear. The 85 and 86 teams did more than just win trophies. They set the foundation for decades of excellence. To date, Coach Haynes' legacy of 29 outdoor, 27 indoor track championships began with the spirit and determination of the teams we honor today. And although track is mainly made of individual events, we believe, worked, and prove what was possible here at Monmouth, not as working as individuals, but as a team. On a personal note, I remember many pre-meet meetings with Coach, going over what points needed to be scored, how many events he thought I could do, and still be standing to anchor the 4x400 meter relay at the end of the day. He didn't do that just with me. He did that with everyone, to make sure we had a plan for success. So, today we honor them, not for only their points, their records, or their titles, but for the spirit that is embodied. To remind us all that the excellence is built step by step, race by race, jump by jump, throw by throw. And remind us that when a group of young athletes commits to each other, to their coach, and to this wonderful college, that they can set in motion a legacy that lasts for decades. To my fellow 85 and 86 Scots, and Coach Haynes, thank you for showing us what it's like to dream big, to compete with our heart, and to win with pride. Thank you for giving me the honor for speaking to these great teams here today. And one last thing, roll Scots.
All right, Nathan and Brian, thanks for the inductions for those three teams. As I said earlier, the individual Hall of Fame plaques are located upstairs. Champions Club Board fortunately came in this week on time, so that board is upstairs as well. We invite everybody to stick around and have a snack and visit. We want the M Club Hall of Fame teams and the Hall of Fame inductees and their presenters to get some photos soon here right next door down on the flat. Everyone associated with Fighting Scot Athletics would like to thank you for your generous donations to the Fighting Scot Society in recent years. They've continued to support many important projects that benefit all Fighting Scot student athletes. As I said to the Champions Club team, you guys get your old bones out there and walk down the street in the parade if you're interested. But the inductees, you need to meet at First United Methodist Church, which is 221 East Broadway, at 11 a.m., by 11 a.m. to get into your vehicles. I'll need you back at 1:45 at the 50-yard line on the football field to be introduced. Okay to change clothes, okay to do whatever you need to do. The main thing is you used to have to wait till halftime, so your festivities can start a little bit earlier after the coin toss. So, I've got handouts for any of the Hall of Fame inductees that need them to remember where they need to be here. So thank you to everyone in attendance today. Thank you to Monmouth College Athletics and all the support we get from our administration. It was a wonderful morning. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. Thanks for being here.